Hi, my name's Lyra. 3 months ago, my sister crashed my car into a wall. But guess who Mom blamed? Me. She made me pay for the damage. And when I didn't, she dumped my stuff outside like I was a stranger. Now, she's crying on my doorstep, begging to rent my apartment. You ever wonder what happens when the scapegoat stops playing along? When the quiet one keeps the receipts instead of the peace? Yeah, so did they. I've always believed that mornings set the tone for the rest of the day. That Thursday started the same as every other, quiet, predictable, safe. The sun peeked through the blinds of my small apartment in Dallas, spreading that golden light that makes everything look softer than it really is. I poured my usual coffee, the same brand I'd been buying since college, and hummed along with the radio. It was supposed to be an ordinary morning. The air smelled like rain was coming, though the sky was still blue. I remember looking out the window and spotting my car, Blue Jay, parked neatly at the curb. She wasn't fancy, but she was mine. A reliable old Honda that had taken me everywhere from job interviews to weekend escapes. That car felt like independence on 4 wheels. I was about to head to work when my phone buzzed across the counter. "Mom," flashed on the screen. I smiled automatically, wiped my hands on a towel, and answered, but her voice wasn't calm. "Lyra, oh my God, Sable's been in an accident!" My stomach dropped. "What, is she hurt?" She's fine. But the car, your car, just come now." For a few seconds, I couldn't move. Then, instinct took over. I grabbed my keys, not even realizing I was still wearing my house slippers. The drive felt endless. My chest pounded as I imagined twisted metal, flashing lights, maybe a hospital bed. Sable was my older sister, the kind who lived life like it owed her something. Still, hearing the word accident made my heart race. When I turned the corner, I saw it. Blue Jay crushed against a concrete wall, the front bumper folded like paper. Sable stood nearby in her designer sweats, phone in hand, looking perfectly fine. My mother hovered next to her, arms crossed. "Sable," I breathed. "What happened?" Sable barely glanced at me. "Relax, I'm fine." "I can see that," I said, staring at the car. "What were you doing driving my car?" "It was an emergency," she shot back, eyes rolling. "An emergency?" My voice cracked. "You don't even have a license right now. How is that an emergency?" Mom cut in before she could answer. "Enough, Lyra. Your sister was trying to help. You don't need to raise your voice." I turned to her, speechless. "Help? She took my car without asking and destroyed it." Sable sighed dramatically. "You're always so uptight. It's just a car." Just a car. The tow truck arrived while I stood there trying to keep my hands from shaking. And I felt invisible, like my anger didn't belong in that conversation. Mom talked to the driver, not me. Sable took selfies beside the wreck, mumbling about insurance coverage and her bad luck. When we finally got home, I expected at least a conversation, maybe a sorry, maybe some accountability. Instead, Mom made tea. She sat at the kitchen table, stirring it slowly, avoiding my eyes. "We'll need to take care of the repair costs," she said matter-of-factly. "We?" I repeated. She looked up. "You'll handle it, won't you? She's your sister." The words hit harder than the crash ever could. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the alternative was screaming. "Mom, I didn't wreck it. Why should I pay?" She sighed, that tired, world-weary sigh she used whenever I refused to play the good daughter. "Because family helps family, Lyra. You've always been so practical. You can afford it. Sable's been under enough stress lately." "Stress?" I said, incredulous. "She took my car without permission and crashed it." Sable appeared in the doorway, still scrolling her phone. "You'll get the insurance money, right? So what's the big deal?" That was when I realized. She wasn't sorry, not even close. "I'll figure something out," I said flatly, pushing back from the table. Mom's eyes narrowed. "You're not refusing to help, are you? Don't be heartless." There it was again, that word. Heartless. The label I'd been given my whole life for setting boundaries, for saying no. "I'm not heartless," I said quietly. "I'm tired." I left before I said something I'd regret. But even as I climbed the stairs to my room, I could hear their voices blending in the kitchen. Mom soothing Sable, Sable pretending to cry, the same performance I'd watched my entire life. I sat on my bed, staring at my hands. They were trembling slightly, a mix of anger and exhaustion. I thought about all the times I'd cleaned up after her mistakes, covered for her lies, fixed things she broke, both objects and people. Maybe this was just another repair job in her long list of disasters. But something felt different this time. Maybe it was seeing my car destroyed, or hearing my mother side with her without hesitation. Maybe it was just that I was too old to keep playing this role. The next morning, I woke up early, long before sunrise. The house was silent, except for the creak of the floorboards and the hum of the refrigerator. I stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the streetlights flicker out one by one. The air was cool and smelled faintly of wet concrete. In the stillness, I caught my reflection in the glass. Tired eyes, clenched jaw, a woman trying too hard to stay calm. Maybe I am too cold, I whispered to no one. Maybe they're right. But another voice inside me, quieter and steadier, pushed back. Or maybe you're just done being used. The thought lingered like a secret I wasn't ready to say out loud. By noon, Mom had texted me a list of repair shops, for your convenience. I didn't reply. I spent the day at work, pretending to listen during meetings, nodding at things I didn't hear. My boss asked if I was okay. I smiled, said I was fine. People always believe you when you say that. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the estimate, $200. My savings could cover it, but that wasn't the point anymore. I folded the paper neatly, slid it back into the envelope, and pushed it aside. The sound was small, but final. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. The first drops of rain began to fall, tapping gently against the window pane. I let it play like background music as I turned off the lights and climbed into bed. Somewhere in the dark, I heard Mom and Sable laughing downstairs, like nothing had happened. And that was the moment I knew. Something inside me had shifted. It wasn't just about a car anymore. It was about every time I'd been made to pay for someone else's mistakes. I closed my eyes, listening to the rain get heavier, and thought, this isn't right. And for the first time, I stopped feeling guilty for thinking that. That was the night I decided things were going to change. That was the day I stopped being the quiet daughter they could guilt into anything. The sound of their laughter from downstairs had burned itself into my memory. It was still echoing in my head when I woke up the next morning. The rain had stopped, leaving behind the thick smell of damp earth and a chill that clung to everything. My pillow was still wet from the night before, not from tears, but from the restless tossing and turning that came with too many thoughts. I'd barely slept, replaying every word, every look, every time I'd been expected to fix what I didn't break. By the time the morning light seeped through the curtains, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I couldn't keep pretending things were normal. I couldn't keep paying the emotional taxes that came with being the responsible one. I got up slowly, made coffee, and sat at the small kitchen table. The mug was warm in my hands, grounding me. Across from me, the seat Sable usually occupied was empty. She was probably still asleep. Mom's slippers shuffled in the hallway, followed by her familiar sigh, the one that always came before a day of expectations. "Morning," she said, pouring herself a cup. "Did you call the auto shop yet?" I looked up at her. "No, I'm not going to." The spoon froze in her hand. "What?" "I'm not paying for the repairs, Mom," I said quietly but firmly. "It wasn't my fault." Her face stiffened. "Lyra, that car is yours. It's your responsibility." "No," I said. "It was my car, but she wrecked it. That makes it her responsibility." The silence stretched, sharp and uncomfortable. She set her mug down harder than necessary, the clink echoing in the small kitchen. "You can't be serious," she said, shaking her head. "She didn't mean to crash it. She was trying to help." "She was trying to help herself," I corrected, keeping my voice calm. "She didn't ask. She never asks. And you keep letting her do it." "Don't you start with that tone," she warned, her voice rising. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." Sable walked in then, wrapped in a pink robe, hair a perfect mess that somehow still looked intentional. She stretched, yawning dramatically. "What's going on?" I didn't even look at her. "You might want to find a way to pay for the car repairs, Sable, because I'm not doing it." She blinked, feigning confusion. "Excuse me?" Mom turned to her. "Don't worry, honey. We'll figure it out." "We won't," I said. "You will, or she will, but I'm done." Sable's lips parted in mock disbelief. "Wow, really, Lyra? I almost got hurt, and this is how you treat me? You're unbelievable." "You weren't hurt," I snapped, the first hint of anger breaking through. "You were fine. You were smiling when I got there." "Because I was trying to stay calm," she cried, clutching her chest as if wounded. Mom's voice boomed over us. "Enough." "Lyra, if you can't help this family, maybe you shouldn't live here." For a second, I thought she didn't mean it, that she'd say something softer after. But she didn't. Her face was stone. I felt a cold wave rush through me. "Are you serious?" She turned away, her silence louder than words. Sable sniffled behind her, pretending to wipe away invisible tears. I stood there for a long moment, the sound of my heartbeat filling the room. Then I walked upstairs, shut my door, and let the silence swallow me whole. The rest of the day passed like I was watching someone else's life. I went to work, answered emails, smiled when people asked how my weekend was. I came home late, the house quiet except for the TV murmuring from Mom's room. For a moment, I thought maybe she'd calm down, maybe we'd talk. But when I pulled into the driveway, something looked off. My porch light was on, casting long shadows across the front yard. And then I saw it, my suitcases stacked neatly by the curb, my duffel bag, my coat, even the small framed photo of Dad and me that used to sit on my nightstand. I froze. At first, I thought it was a mistake, that maybe she was cleaning or rearranging something. But the door was locked. The curtains were drawn. And then, through the second-story window, I saw Sable's silhouette, arms crossed, smirking down at me like a queen surveying her conquest. My mother didn't even come to the door. The air felt heavy, almost too thick to breathe. I could hear crickets in the distance, a dog barking 2 houses down. I stood there, holding the handle of one suitcase, waiting for something to happen, an explanation, a knock, anything. But nothing came. After a few minutes, a neighbor across the street peeked through her blinds. The same woman who'd once borrowed sugar from me now pretended she didn't see me standing there in the dark. I picked up my bags, one by one, and placed them in my trunk. My hands were steady, but my chest ached like someone had reached inside and squeezed. When I got into the car, I saw the empty space where Blue Jay's steering wheel should have been, replaced by a temporary rental. It didn't feel like home. I drove aimlessly for a while, through streets that felt familiar but suddenly foreign. The city lights blurred as I tried to think of where to go. I wasn't ready to tell anyone, not yet. The humiliation was too raw. Finally, I pulled into a gas station, sat there under the fluorescent lights, and scrolled through my contacts. My thumb hovered over a few names before I landed on one. Renee. She was a coworker, not a close friend, but kind enough to once offer, "If you ever need a place to crash, my couch is always open." It was almost midnight when I called. "Hey," she answered, her voice groggy but kind. "Everything okay?" "Not really," I said. My voice cracked despite my best effort. Can I come over?" There was no hesitation. "Of course, you're not driving far, are you?" "No, just a few miles." When I arrived, she was already waiting by the door in her robe, holding a spare blanket. "You can stay as long as you need," she said softly. "I'll make some tea." Her living room smelled faintly of vanilla candles and laundry detergent. I set my things by the couch and sank into the cushions, exhaustion washing over me. The room was small but warm, safe in a way I hadn't felt in years. Renee handed me the mug and sat across from me. "You don't have to talk about it," she said. I nodded, grateful. "Thanks, maybe tomorrow." When she went to bed, I lay there staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me. The rhythmic hum filled the silence where my thoughts used to scream. I tried not to cry, but a few tears slipped out anyway, rolling down my temples into my hair. I thought about the look on my mother's face, the finality of it, the way she didn't even flinch. Maybe this was what freedom looked like, small, painful, and lonely. But under the ache, something steadier began to form, a sense of quiet relief. For the first time, I didn't owe anyone an apology. As I drifted toward sleep, I whispered to myself, maybe being alone is better than being used. The rain started again outside, tapping softly against the window. It didn't sound sad this time, just honest. I closed my eyes and let the sound carry me somewhere far away from that house, that guilt, that version of myself who always said yes. Tomorrow, I'd figure out the rest. But for now, I finally had peace. But I didn't realize cutting ties wouldn't stop them from finding new ways to hurt me. Morning light crept across the small apartment, catching on the edges of Lysandra's blinds. The sound of traffic filtered up from the street below, horns, engines, a burst of laughter, someone's music thumping faintly from a passing car. I blinked awake, disoriented. And then it hit me all over again. This wasn't my room. This wasn't my home. The futon beneath me creaked as I shifted. My suitcase lay open on the floor beside it, half unpacked, half forgotten, as if even my belongings didn't know if they were coming or going. I pulled the blanket tighter around me and stared at the ceiling, tracing the faint cracks in the plaster. Lysandra's place was small, but there was something about it that made it feel like a gentle exhale. A cat, Miso, claimed the apartment with the kind of sleepy confidence only cats possess. She'd taken a liking to me and often curled up on my pillow when I wasn't looking. The air always smelled faintly of lavender and dish soap, and the kitchen was filled with mismatched mugs and secondhand plates that didn't match, but somehow belonged together anyway. I hadn't realized how tense my shoulders had been until I came here. "Morning," Lysandra said, appearing in the doorway holding 2 mugs. Her voice was soft, like the apartment itself. She crossed over and handed me one. "You actually slept?" "More like drifted in and out," I muttered, sitting up. "Your couch isn't bad, though." "It's seen worse," she said with a half-smile, settling into the armchair. "How are you holding up?" I shrugged, hugging the warm mug. I keep waiting for her to call, to say she didn't mean it, that it was just a bad moment. "Do you really think she will?" I didn't answer. We both knew she wouldn't. My mother's pride had always been louder than her love. As the morning stretched on, I tried to make myself useful, washed dishes I didn't dirty, folded Lysandra's clean laundry. Old habits clung like second skin. I'd spent most of my life being the one who kept the machine running, the peacekeeper, the fixer. Sitting still felt wrong, useless. When Dad died, I was 15. Mom broke in ways none of us knew how to mend. Sable rebelled, late nights, slammed doors, skipped school. And me, I adapted. I got quiet. I filled the fridge. I made sure the electricity didn't get shut off. I became the glue, even when no one noticed. Especially then. But now, in a borrowed apartment, surrounded by someone else's mess and kindness, I had no one to fix, no role to play, and the silence made that truth deafening. Later that afternoon, I finally checked my phone. No calls from Mom, no texts, no apologies, just a few missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize and emails I didn't care to open. The silence stung more than I'd expected. And I told myself I didn't care, that I was better off. But deep down, I still ached for something, anything, that said I still mattered. Lysandra came home from work around 6, kicked off her shoes, and dropped her keys into the little ceramic bowl by the door. "You okay?" she asked, pausing in the hallway. I forced a smile. "As okay as I'm gonna be." She gave me a look that said she didn't believe me, but she let it go. I loved her for that. After dinner, I curled up again on the futon, scrolling aimlessly through Facebook. It was a bad habit, but it made the world feel less quiet. That's when I saw it. My mother's name, a new post. It's always the ungrateful ones who turn their backs when you need them most. My stomach dropped. For a moment, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it wasn't about me. Maybe she meant someone else, a friend, a cousin, a neighbor. But the comments told the truth. "She was always the quiet one," a relative chimed in. "You gave her everything, and this is how she repays you?" "I know how that feels, honey," someone else wrote. "Kids today just don't get it." Heart emojis, praying hands, Digital pity, as cheap as it was abundant. And there she was, Sable, in the comments, pretending to be the voice of reason. She's just going through something, Mom. Don't let it get to you. Hypocrisy wrapped in fake concern. My fingers trembled, hovering over the screen. I wanted to say something, to scream the truth into the void, but I didn't. I set the phone down, heart hammering, throat tight. I didn't defend myself. Because what was the point? People didn't want the truth. They wanted stories that made them feel righteous. And my mother had always known how to tell the one that made her the victim. Still, I couldn't stop checking. Every few hours, I refreshed the page, and each time, it grew worse. Distant cousins, old family friends, people I barely remembered, joining the chorus. Family should stick together. It's always about money these days. She'll regret this when you're gone. Money, that was the story now, that I'd refused to help because I was cold, selfish. The irony was almost funny. I'd spent years giving everything I had to that family. But none of that mattered now. By nightfall, I felt erased, replaced by the caricature they preferred. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection. The face that looked back didn't look angry, just tired, hollow. Even my silence was used against me. Later, Lysandra knocked on the door gently. You should sleep. I will, I whispered. I didn't. That night, the weight of that single post kept me pinned in place. I kept thinking about how easy it was for them to rewrite me. How little it took for a mother to throw her child to the wolves for the sake of sympathy. And somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m., I made a decision. I wouldn't respond, not online, not in whispers, but I wouldn't vanish either. The next day, I left the apartment and took a long walk. The sky was the kind of gray that feels like it's thinking about crying, but hasn't made up its mind. Spring clung to the air, wet earth, blooming trees, the faint smell of something green and alive. The world kept turning, even if mine had stopped. By the time I got back, I had a voicemail from an aunt I hadn't spoken to in years. Sweetheart, your mom's just heartbroken. Maybe you should call her. Life's too short for grudges. I deleted it without listening to the rest. That night, Lysandra made pasta, poured 2 glasses of wine. She didn't ask questions, just handed me a bowl and said, "Eat." It was the kindest thing anyone had done for me in weeks. Later, I sat on the fire escape, glass in hand, city lights flickering beneath my feet. I remembered a moment, 12 years old, blamed for something Sable did. Mom never even asked, just looked at me and said, "Why can't you be more careful?" I took the blame. I always did. Back then, I thought it kept the peace. But peace built on silence isn't peace at all. It's surrender. And I was done surrendering. I was done being the scapegoat. The next chapter of my life wouldn't be written in the language of shame or obligation. It would be mine, and no one else's to define. It had been nearly 3 weeks since I'd last heard her voice. Long enough for silence to reshape itself into something almost sacred. My days had grown predictable in the best way, waking early, walking to work through streets just beginning to stir, coming home to a quiet apartment that still smelled faintly of fresh paint and newly unpacked boxes. It was a rhythm, a refuge. For the first time in what felt like years, my life was my own. Mine to protect. Mine to shape. That peace, hard-earned and fragile, lasted exactly 19 days. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon, just as I was stabbing lifelessly at a salad I didn't even want. The screen lit up with a name that made my heart clench. Mom. The 2 syllables stared back at me like a dare. I didn't answer. Seconds later, a voicemail notification appeared. I stared at the phone for a long moment, thumb hovering. Delete it. Just delete it. But curiosity is a stubborn thing, and old wounds have a way of itching when you least expect it. Her voice filled the air like a memory I hadn't consented to revisit. Hi, honey. It's been a while. I hope you're okay. Things have been tough here, really tough. I was wondering, I hate to ask, but do you think I could rent your place for a little while? Just until things settle down. That pause before the ask wasn't hesitation, it was calculation. I played the message 3 times. Every syllable felt rehearsed, sugar-coated, intentional. Rent my place? As if we were strangers on Craigslist, not mother and daughter 3 weeks post-eviction. That night, sleep eluded me. Her voice looped in my mind like a song stuck on repeat, every sweetheart laced with undertones I recognized too well. Part of me wanted to ignore it, delete the message, pretend I never heard it. But another part, the part that still wanted answers, closure, something, reached for my phone. Me, we can talk. Tomorrow afternoon. Her reply was immediate. Mom. Cornerstone Cafe at 2. Love you, honey. Those last words landed differently now. Love you was no longer comfort. It was bait. The Cornerstone Cafe hadn't changed. Same old brick walls, same smell of burnt espresso and buttered croissants. It was the place she used to take us after Sunday service. Back when I still thought love came without terms. She was already there when I arrived. Of course she was. Dressed like she was hosting brunch with the mayor. Bright scarf, flawless lipstick, hair curled just enough to look effortless. Lyra, she said brightly, standing like we were long-lost friends. Oh, sweetheart, you look wonderful. Really thriving. I sat across from her without returning the compliment. You said you wanted to talk. Her smile faltered, just for a second, before it snapped back into place. Yes, well, things at home have been hard. Sable's been staying with friends, and the house needs repairs. I need somewhere quiet, just for a bit. Where is Sable now? I asked. She's figuring things out, she said vaguely, like that answered anything. She's been through a lot lately. And you thought of me, I said flatly. You've always been so steady, she replied, voice warm and patronizing. You've done so well for yourself. I'm proud of you. The words clanged. Not once had she said she was proud when I landed my job, when I moved out, or when I picked up the pieces of my life after she let Sable wreck it. Now, she said it like a negotiation, like it had a price tag. She reached into her purse and pulled out a white envelope. I can pay rent, not much, but something, just until I get back on my feet. I didn't touch it. So this isn't about apologizing? Her smile dimmed. Lyra, this isn't about the past. We've all said things we didn't mean. You locked the door behind me. She looked away. I was overwhelmed. Sable was in pieces. It all happened so fast. No, I said, my voice steady. It happened because you let it. She paused, then softened her voice. I just thought maybe this could be a fresh start. You get a tenant who won't trash the place. I get a roof over my head. I almost laughed. Tenant. That was her angle now. She wanted a contract, not reconciliation. Still, I nodded. I'll think about it. Relief poured across her face like she'd just closed escrow. That's all I'm asking. She pushed the envelope across the table. Just a little something to hold the place. This time I took it, but not because I was convinced. I wanted to see what her version of rent looked like. Back home, Lysandra was waiting, tea in hand, brows raised. You saw her. I did. And? She wants to rent my apartment. She blinked. After everything? I tossed the envelope onto the counter. She's apparently fallen on hard times. Lyra, please don't tell me you're actually considering this. If I say no, I'm the ungrateful daughter. If I say yes, I'm a doormat. Lysandra shook her head slowly. This isn't about helping. It's about control. That's always what it's about with her. I opened the envelope. Inside, $280, mostly tens. Not enough to cover utilities, let alone rent. You know what this is, right? She asked. I nodded. Bait. That night, I sat alone at my desk, the hum of the fridge my only companion. My laptop screen glowed. A blank document waited. I thought about it all. Sable, the crash, the locked door, the twisted version of the truth that turned me into a villain in my own story. Now here she was again, not asking to make things right, but asking to move in. No, not this time. If she wanted back into my life, she was going to have to come through the front door, with a signed lease and a clean conscience. Because this time, I wasn't just setting boundaries, I was drawing lines in permanent ink. This time, if she wanted a place in my life, she was going to have to sign for it. The morning after I made the decision, everything felt muted. The sun slid through my blinds in slanted strips, the kind that drew hard lines across the room, exposing everything. Dust, cracks, things you tried not to look at. The silence in my apartment wasn't peaceful. It was sterile, clean like a hospital room, like something had been cut out and discarded. But there was a strange power in it, a steadiness. I brewed coffee, no sugar, no milk, just strong and bitter, the way I'd come to like it. I sat down at the kitchen table, laptop open, a blank document staring back at me. Only this time, it didn't scare me. It didn't overwhelm. It felt like control. I began typing slowly, carefully, not out of hesitation, but with the deliberate precision of someone finally reclaiming her boundaries. This wasn't just a lease. It was a line drawn in ink, a contract born from years of silence and swallowed resentment. 3 full pages. Rent due on the 1st of each month, no grace period. Utilities are separate and must be paid in full. No guests for longer than 72 hours. No subleasing. No smoking. Late fees apply after 3 days. Non-negotiable. And most important, failure to comply voids the agreement. I formatted each section like a professional property manager would. Bolded headers, bullet points, even legal-style phrasing. Not because I wanted to intimidate her, but because I wanted her to take it seriously. I needed her to understand that this wasn't a favor. This was business. By the time I was done, I felt something strange and unfamiliar. Confidence. The email was short. I attached the file, and in the body wrote, "Please read carefully before signing. Lyra." Then I hesitated. Not because I doubted the decision, but because some part of me still craved her approval, even now. Even after everything, I hated that. I clicked send anyway. The response came hours later. "Got it, sweetheart. You're so responsible. Let's meet tomorrow to go over it. Love you." Love you. She always used those words like punctuation, as if they could erase everything that came before. We met at the new apartment the next day. My apartment. I'd already moved into a smaller place across town. It didn't have much, but it was mine. The one she wanted was cozy and sunny, facing a quiet street near a park. Fresh paint, clean carpet. Simple, peaceful. She was already there when I arrived, waving like a politician outside the door, smile painted on too wide. "Oh, Lyra, this place looks even better in person," she gushed, stepping into the entryway like she owned it. "It's been well kept," I said, neutral. She walked through each room, humming her approval, offering compliments that sounded more like performance than sincerity. "You always were the capable one. Always so detail-oriented." We sat at the kitchen table. I placed the contract and pen in front of her. She put on her reading glasses, nodding through each page. 3-month minimum, fair rent, no smoking, late fees. "Okay," she said, smiling between lines. I said nothing. Then she picked up the pen and signed, not with tension or reluctance, but with flair, like she was signing a birthday card. She even placed the pen down with a little flourish, satisfied. "Here's the first month and deposit," she said, sliding an envelope over. "See, I can follow rules too." I thanked her. But I didn't believe her. She stood, brushing imaginary dust from her skirt. "I'll start moving in this weekend. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. You don't need to stress." I looked at her. Something about her tone, casual, dismissive, triggered an old ache in me. "Just make sure to follow the agreement," I said. She grinned, too brightly. "Of course, honey. You have my word." Her word. And the same word she used when she promised she'd pay back the money she borrowed. The same word she gave when she swore my sister had only borrowed my car, not wrecked it. Her word meant nothing, not anymore. 2 weeks later, the cracks appeared. The first sign, a utility notice. The electric bill hadn't been paid. I sent a reminder, no response. Days later, another notice, this time for water. Then came the text from the downstairs tenant. "Hey, heads up, lot of people coming and going upstairs lately. Looks like a party house." My heart dropped. That night, I drove over. The porch light was on, shadows flickering behind the curtains. Laughter, off-key and loud. I knocked hard. Silence fell. When the door opened, my mother stood there, drink in hand, smile too polished. "Oh, Lyra, what a surprise! Just having a few friends over. No big deal." Inside, I saw them. 3 people sprawled on the couch, drinks everywhere, music paused but still vibrating in the walls. "No guests over 72 hours, I said. She waved her hand. "Relax, that's just Tony and his friends. You remember Tony?" "I remember he stole your bracelet," she chuckled. "He was 17. He's changed." The air stank of cigarettes, burnt ash and stale laughter. "This isn't a social club, it's a rental unit," I said. Her smile flickered. "You don't have to talk to me like I'm some tenant. You signed the lease." She looked at me like I was the unreasonable one. I left before I said something I'd regret. Over the next 2 weeks, everything deteriorated. No rent. More missed bills. Neighbors complained again. I went to the apartment when she wasn't home. Trash on the porch. Cigarette burns on the couch. Furniture missing. A broken lamp. My lamp. And for the first time, I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. Later, over coffee with Lysandra, I told her everything. "She signed a legal agreement," I said. "If it were anyone else, I'd already be filing an eviction notice." "So why aren't you?" "Because it's my mom." She gave me a look, not unkind, but firm. "Because strangers don't carry your guilt in their pocket." I stared at her, stunned. "She's using that pocket like a leash," Lysandra added. That night, back in my quiet apartment, I opened my laptop again. The document this time wasn't a lease. It was a record. I stopped asking her to honor her word. I started collecting evidence, because boundaries don't mean much unless they come with consequences. And this time, there would be consequences. The next morning arrived like a quiet drumbeat. No dramatic sunrise, no thunderclap of motivation. Just a simple, steady resolve. For the first time in years, I felt grounded. Not furious, not heartbroken, not lost. Just intentional. My anger had cooled into something sharper. Not fire, but focus. The kind that doesn't scream. It calculates. I brewed my coffee slowly, the scent anchoring me as I cleared off the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I clicked New Folder and titled it Apartment Lease, Legal. Naming it felt ceremonial, like lighting a candle before a war council. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about preparation, precision, proof. I started uploading files, receipts from rent payments, screenshots of late notices I'd sent, every text where she promised to pay next week and never did. Each one got its own label. Payment reminder, 0315, utility split text, lease copy, signed. My fingers moved with mechanical rhythm, typing, saving, sorting. With every file added, I felt more like myself. Then I bought a small voice recorder and placed it near the entryway, on a decorative shelf, where it looked like nothing. In my state, only one person had to know a conversation was being recorded. That person was me. I wasn't snooping, I was documenting, and for once, I wasn't explaining myself for doing what I needed to do. By noon, I had compiled a timeline more honest than any memory. The missed payments, the broken promises, the messages riddled with guilt trips and gaslighting, it was all there, stamped and stored. It read like a slow-motion betrayal. But now, it was no longer intangible pain, it was evidence. There was a strange comfort in that, cold, yes, but solid. I made lunch, but barely touched it. The silence in the apartment was different now. Not the aching kind, it was expectant, like the air before a courtroom door opens. I had been the family's emotional garbage disposal for too long, absorbing blame, bending backward to keep the peace. But now, I had something they didn't, the truth, cataloged. Later that day, I mindlessly opened Instagram. Just to escape, I told myself. But as I scrolled, the gut punch came fast and brutal. There she was, Sable, on my couch, legs crossed like she owned the place. A wine glass in one hand, her eyes fixed on the camera with a smile that had no warmth. The caption read, Not everyone gets rent-free city living. Thanks, sis. My fingers curled tightly around the phone. Beneath the post, the comments flowed like poison. OMG, you're so lucky. Living the dream. Your sister must be amazing. And then, the dagger. My mother commented, she finally did something useful for this family. That comment hollowed me. I reread it, stunned. Useful. As if all the years of shouldering responsibilities, paying bills alone, staying quiet while being disrespected, meant nothing. That single line, typed casually, held all the contempt I had suspected, now confirmed in digital ink. My first instinct was to respond, to fight back, to post every receipt, every fact. But then, Lysandra's voice echoed in my mind. Don't feed the fire. Build the file. So I took a screenshot, then another. Every comment, every heart emoji, every fake family goals reaction. Saved, labeled, printed, slipped into the binder. The sound of paper sliding into those plastic sleeves became a ritual. 1 page per betrayal. The next morning, I called Marcus, an old college friend who'd gone into law. We hadn't spoken in a while, but he picked up on the second ring. His voice was warm, grounding. Lyra, it's been forever. What's going on? I'm not filing anything, not yet, I said. But I'm building a case. I need to know what's admissible. Screenshots, recordings, texts. All of it's valid, he said. Keep everything. Timestamps matter. And don't let them know you're collecting. It makes people start covering their tracks. Too late, I muttered. They think they've already won, he chuckled. Then they'll slip up. Pride makes people sloppy. I hung up with a sense of clarity. This wasn't paranoia. This was protection. Over the following days, I kept my mask polished. When my mother texted, I responded with cool civility. Just checking in, sweetheart. I replied, hope you're well, rent's still pending. No guilt, no over-explanation, just facts. Let the file speak. One night, I drove by the apartment. From across the street, I saw too many silhouettes moving around. Then a man I didn't recognize stepped onto the balcony, lit a cigarette, and leaned against the railing like he belonged there. He didn't. I took a photo and time-stamped it. No confrontation, just evidence. That weekend, I sat with Lysandra on her porch, the air scented with jasmine and cooling tea. You ever get tired of being the one who always does the right thing? I asked. All the time, she replied. But I sleep better than the rest. I told her about Sable's post. She's bragging, I said. To thousands of followers, like it's a game. Lysandra raised an eyebrow. And you saved it? I gave her a look. She laughed. That's my girl. We sat in silence for a while. The sky turned orange. My tea cooled. They still think I'll cave, I said eventually. They don't know I've changed. She looked at me, serious now. No, because you stopped reacting. That scares them more than anything. That night, back at home, I opened my laptop. The folder had grown, 42 files now, each labeled, dated, backed up. I scrolled through them slowly, absorbing the quiet power they held. This wasn't about rage anymore. It was about boundaries. I opened the latest image, the man on the balcony, and studied it. He wasn't the problem. He was a symptom. Another person allowed in without permission. Another rule ignored, another line crossed. But this time, I wasn't begging anyone to see my side. I had proof. I closed the laptop gently, leaned back, and exhaled. No tremble in my hands, no doubt in my chest, just a steady pulse of certainty. They thought silence meant surrender, but silence could be strategy. I didn't need to raise my voice. I had records, and soon they'd speak louder than any scream ever could. They thought I wouldn't fight back, but I never needed fists. I had facts. That night, I lay awake for hours. The ceiling above me faded in and out of focus, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in my small studio apartment. Sleep didn't come easily, not when the past kept pushing itself into the present. I replayed every late bill that was shoved into my hands like it was my fault. Every false promise that tasted like sugar but felt like glass once swallowed. every lie that wore my mother's smile. I had spent so long questioning myself, wondering if I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too unforgiving. But that night, something changed. The line between gaslighting and reality became razor sharp. When I finally did fall asleep, it was the kind of rest that comes after a storm, fragile, restless. The next morning, the sky was low and gray, as if it too had something heavy to carry. I turned over in bed to the sharp buzz of my phone. A message notification. The sender's name was unfamiliar, just a string of numbers. The message contained only one thing, a video clip. I hesitated for a second before tapping play. The footage was grainy, shot from what looked like the front porch of my old apartment. The camera wasn't steady, but the audio came through with unnerving clarity. There they were, my mother and Sable, sitting together on the bench like they didn't have a care in the world. Laughing, smiling. It was like watching two strangers peel off their masks in front of me. "She thinks she's so smart with her little contract," Sable sneered, and my stomach dropped. "She'll always be the weak one," my mother replied, her voice casual, cutting. I paused the video. The still frame captured both of them mid-laugh, perfectly comfortable in their cruelty. My hands trembled, but my face stayed still. I played the video again, and again. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I saved the video, backed it up 3 times, and sat in silence. And that short clip, 35 seconds, had more truth in it than every word they'd said to me in the past 5 years combined. It was the culmination of what I had always known, but never had the proof to show. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't exaggerating. They really did think I was nothing more than an obstacle. The rest of the day felt like walking through a tunnel with no sound, just motion. I took the bus to my new apartment across town. I double-locked the door, drew the blinds, and sat down with my laptop. This wasn't a reaction. This was documentation. I opened my lease agreement, the one Sable had violated in every possible way, and began drafting the termination letter. Every clause she had broken was laid out with clarity. Unpaid utility bills stretching back months, unauthorized subletting when she let her friend crash for weeks, the consistent disruptions violating the quiet enjoyment clause. I wasn't emotional. I was precise. I printed the letter, signed it with a steady hand, and sent it via certified mail. I attached the digital version to an email with the subject line, "Official notice to vacate." No extra words, no anger, just fact. "You have 14 days to vacate the premises," the letter stated. "Further communication must be directed through legal counsel." And just like that, I hit send. No hesitation, no second guessing. An hour later, my phone rang. My mother. I stared at the screen before answering. Her voice came through soft, trembling. "Lyra, please, I'm sorry. You can't do this. It's your sister. She doesn't know better. You're overreacting. Don't tear the family apart." It was the voice of someone who'd never apologized when it mattered, someone who only reached for sorry when control was slipping. I didn't say a word, just let the silence stretch until she hung up, sniffling. Then came Sable's next move. An Instagram story, white clouds over a sunset with bold script overlay. "People who forget where they came from will end up alone." A not-so-subtle attack disguised as philosophy. She was staking her version of the truth publicly, painting herself as the abandoned, misunderstood sister. I still didn't respond. Not publicly, not privately. I let the silence grow louder than their noise. By evening, Lysandra texted me. "You handling it okay?" I stared at the message, then typed back. "For once, I think I am." And I meant it. There was no need for a social media battle, no dramatic confrontation. The evidence had already spoken. The eviction notice, the video, the screenshots of ignored payments and false statements. It all built the wall I needed between myself and their version of the truth. I sat in my apartment, the quiet finally feeling like comfort instead of loneliness. I looked at my desktop, where the video played one last time before I closed it. Not out of pain, but closure. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't rage. This was survival. This was me reclaiming my voice brick by brick. And maybe, for the first time, it was also justice. I'd known it was coming. Or rather, I trusted my gut enough not to pretend it wouldn't. The moment I dropped the lease termination notice in the mailbox, I felt the shift in the air, like the pause before a thunderstorm. Days passed without a word, no angry texts, no thinly veiled guilt trips, just a deafening, calculated silence. But silence from her was never peace. It was preparation. The envelope arrived on a Wednesday morning, tucked between an electricity bill and a coupon booklet. Heavy, cream-colored paper, embossed lettering. My stomach sank before I even opened it. Legal language always has a way of draining the warmth out of a room. The words "cease and desist" stared up at me in bold type, followed by a lawsuit that read like fiction. Claims of emotional distress, accusations of public humiliation. She'd even gone as far as accusing me of elder abuse. Me, the daughter who'd paid her rent, her groceries, her car insurance for years. The same daughter who picked up her prescriptions, who defended her in front of others, who carried the emotional weight of a household that had never quite been home. It didn't matter. None of it did to her. In the story she chose to write, I was the villain. And now she had dressed her bitterness in legal language. My vision blurred. My chest tightened. My hand trembled, just briefly, before I folded the papers neatly and set them down on the table. I inhaled through my nose and closed my eyes. I had practiced this kind of calm before. When you've been raised on someone else's chaos, composure becomes a survival skill. By afternoon, I was sitting across from Janine, my attorney. Her office was just how I remembered it, quiet, minimal, filled with soft light from a floor-to-ceiling window. It always smelled faintly of lavender and new books. Janine didn't blink as I recited the claims. She listened, nodded, and when I passed her the cease and desist, she held it like it was just another piece of junk mail. "We've got this," she said simply. And we did. I handed her a thick folder filled with everything I'd quietly been compiling. Rent receipts, payment records, every emailed reminder I'd sent, every text she ignored or mocked. The screenshots of her posting passive-aggressive jabs on Instagram, thinly veiled but unmistakable. Even the short clip Sable had accidentally uploaded, the one where she drunkenly joked about finally getting under her sister's skin enough to make her snap. We organized it all. A timeline, a record. The paper trail of a daughter who tried, again and again, to fix what had never truly been hers to repair. Janine's response was concise, clinical, and searing. She addressed each claim with evidence, laid out the contradictions in her story, and ended with a firm warning. Your client's claims are both baseless and defamatory. Continued action will be met with legal recourse. She underlined that last part. It wasn't theatrical, it was a boundary. We sent it by certified mail and email. A counterpunch with precision, no flair, no emotion, just facts. I walked out of Janine's office lighter than I had in months. The clouds hadn't cleared, but I wasn't standing in the storm anymore. I was watching it move past. In the days that followed, the silence returned, but this time, it didn't carry the weight of anticipation. There were no calls, no passive-aggressive posts, no last-minute pleas wrapped in manipulation. She'd finally gone quiet for real. I tracked the move-out status on the building's online portal. The day came and went. Keys returned. No damage, no confrontation, just a quiet ending. That evening, I sat in my new apartment, glass of wine in hand. The city shimmered beyond the window, distant car horns, laughter below, the hum of a world still spinning. I sat curled on my thrifted sofa, surrounded by mismatched throw pillows and half-unpacked boxes. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine, every corner of it. I didn't turn on the TV. I just sat, letting the silence fill the space. Not the hollow, waiting kind, the peaceful kind. My mind drifted. To the time I cleaned up shards of glass after Sable threw a tantrum and shattered a picture frame, then blamed me for leaving it on the edge. To the nights I stayed up folding laundry that wasn't mine. To the way I used to swallow every feeling because no one ever asked what I was going through, only what I could do for them. That house had never been a home. Not really. It was a stage where I played the part they assigned me. Dutiful daughter, Quiet provider, invisible backbone. But now, this wasn't the family I wanted, but it was the one I outgrew, and I didn't owe it my peace anymore. I stared into my wine glass. The deep red swirled like a reflection of everything I had endured, dark, still, beautiful in its own quiet way. I didn't drink it, I just held it, because I was done numbing myself to survive them. They walked out of my life with spite and silence, but something in me whispered that someone else, someone better, was finally making room to walk in. Maybe a friend, maybe love, maybe just the version of me I had buried under years of obligation. Whoever it was, they wouldn't have to fight through guilt to reach me. They would find me here, free, awake, and ready. They walked out of my life, but someone else was waiting to walk back in. The morning arrived with a quiet chill, silver light filtering through my curtains like a whispered truth I wasn't ready to face. It was the first time in weeks that the house didn't feel like it was holding its breath. Instead, the silence stretched around me like an empty field. No footsteps, no yelling, no passive-aggressive sighs from behind closed doors, just stillness. I sat at the edge of my bed, phone cradled in my hands, screen lit with nothing, no missed calls, no texts, no apologies, and yet strangely, I wasn't bracing anymore. There was no anticipation, no dread, just space, the kind of space that lets you breathe for the first time after years of learning to inhale in silence. At precisely 10:15 a.m., the doorbell rang. I didn't move at first. A dozen thoughts bloomed and died in my mind in seconds. A neighbor, a delivery, a mistake. Then instinct kicked in, quiet but firm. I stood and patted across the room. Through the peephole, my stomach clenched. It was her, my mother. She stood hunched, her back slightly curled inward like someone trying to disappear. Her hair was unbrushed, makeup smudged under her eyes like she hadn't slept. Her hands clutched a paper bag, the kind kids use for lunch. She looked up, right at the door, eyes rimmed red. My heart didn't leap, it sunk. I didn't open it at first, I just watched her. For all the times I had waited at that same door, heart pounding, hoping she'd come find me, call me back, say I mattered. I felt none of that now. Only a dull ache, like touching a bruise and realizing it doesn't hurt anymore. I opened the door slowly, cautiously. She blinked at me, startled, her voice raw. "Lyra, I have nowhere else to go." I didn't speak. I reached into my pocket and took out the spare keys, the ones she had insisted on keeping even after everything. Quietly, I bent down and placed them on the floor between us. She followed the motion, her gaze dropping to the metal like it had just betrayed her. Her mouth opened slightly, then shut. "Why are you here?" My voice came out calm. Not angry, not emotional, just grounded. She fidgeted. I thought, maybe I made a mistake. I never meant to. I closed my eyes for a beat, then opened the door just wide enough to gesture. "Go!" She blinked fast. "Please, just hear me out. Let me explain." I stepped back, shaking my head. She hesitated, her lips trembling. Then she placed the paper bag on the threshold like it was some sort of offering. Inside, I later saw, were a few pathetic items. A used hand towel, a pack of stale crackers, a photo of me as a toddler with a note scrawled on the back. "You were always mine." But I didn't thank her. I didn't pity her. I didn't cry. I simply locked the door behind her. Her footsteps paused for a moment, then continued down the stairs. Fainter, fainter, gone. Needing me is not the same as loving me. That thought settled like a stone in water, rippling, sinking, final. Later that day, word spread through the same social channels that once praised Sable like she was some modern martyr. Her empire of sympathy had started to crumble. Sponsors began pulling out quietly, severing ties with polite professionalism. Her posts, once filled with emojis and admiration, now had sharp comments that cut deeper than any of her lies. She had overplayed her hand, and now the internet had turned on her. At noon, a text came from her. "Hope you're happy. We're both suffering now." I deleted it before reading the rest. I didn't owe her grief or a response. By evening, another message came, this time from my aunt. Your mom's broken down. She's saying she regrets everything. I put the phone down without replying. I didn't feel cruel. I felt clean. That afternoon, the mail arrived, a single box at my door with handwriting I hadn't seen in years. The return address belonged to my dad's sister in Oregon. Written in careful script on the label were the words, Dad's Things, for Lyra. My hands shook slightly as I carried it inside. I sat on the floor, legs crossed, like a child at Christmas who already knew the gift would make them cry. Inside the box were memories frozen in time, old photographs of Dad and me at the beach, his favorite blue tie, his worn-out wallet, a cracked leather journal, and then, at the bottom, a sealed envelope. To Lyra, in his unmistakable handwriting. My breath hitched. I opened it slowly, savoring the feel of paper that had once been touched by him. Inside was a single-page letter, folded 3 times, edges slightly frayed. My dearest Lyra, I'm sorry I couldn't protect you more. I wish I had stayed long enough to see you become the incredible woman I always knew you'd be. You were always the strongest one, even when no one saw. Especially then. Don't believe the lies they told you. You are not difficult. You are not unlovable. You are not too much. You are fire in the cold and light in dark places. Never stop believing in yourself. With all my love, Dad. I pressed the letter to my chest. I couldn't breathe for a moment, not because it hurt, but because it healed. Tears slipped quietly, not from pain, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen, of being affirmed, of finally feeling like someone had known me and loved me anyway. I didn't cry for hours. I just sat there, letting the quiet wash over me like an ocean I didn't need to swim against anymore. That night, I moved. A smaller apartment. Fresh paint, second-hand furniture, a kitchen window that overlooked a quiet street. I paid for movers this time. No favors, no guilt. As the last box was set down, I placed the framed letter on a small table near the entrance. Beside it, a lavender plant bloomed, Dad's favorite. Its scent filled the room like a gentle reminder. When the movers left, I locked the door behind them. The soft click echoed louder than it should have, not as an ending, but as a beginning. I walked to the window, resting my hand against the glass. The skyline stretched out before me, not a cage, not a threat, but a canvas, open, unwritten. I didn't lose a family, I whispered. I left a cage. This was not exile. It was freedom. I turned back to the apartment. Quiet, warm, mine. The keys sat beside the letter. Silent witnesses to the version of me I was becoming. Some scars stay, but scars are not failures. They are proof we survived. And now, I would grow something beautiful around them. Sometimes, the people who hurt you most will be the ones who claim to love you the loudest. But love without respect isn't love, it's control. If you've ever been the scapegoat in your own family, what did it take for you to finally walk away? Drop your story in the comments. I read everyone. And if this hit home, don't forget to subscribe. There are more real, raw, and healing family stories coming your way.